Oh, hello and welcome to today's broadcast. I'm your host, Davina, trying to make politics interesting. Today, trying to amplify some anti-racism resources written by Myron J Clifton, anti-racism resources for white people by Myron J Clifton, and also talking about Lindsey Graham, who's proposed that the age of Social Security be raised to, was it 70 or 71? Let me briefly check on that. 70, which is kind of cutting the amount of Social Security benefits that you'd get paid by minimizing the portion of your life that you would get paid these benefits. And particularly for people with arduous physical work, that's a hard ask to require them to put off receiving their Social Security benefits. It's like, hello, have an extra 10 years longer of just stretching yourself, depleting your own capacity to get up and devote yourself to a potentially grueling job for too little pay. So there's some jobs that are like that in the United States. Those people that have self-retired, that have got their finances all totally sorted out prior to the age of 70. Good for those people, but they should understand they're resting on scaffolding of a system that has shunted certain benefits in certain directions. Does that make sense? I'm not just talking about white privilege. I'm talking about white wealth privilege and just wealth privilege in general, because even white wealthy people in the United States who have, through a combination of their own exertions and a system of gatekeeping, those who've got it get to keep it and grow it. As Billie Holiday memorably sang, "Them that's got shall have, them that's not shall lose." So the Bible said, and it still rings true. I'm a secular Jew and I'm not particularly familiar with everything the Bible says. So I don't entirely know where it says in the Bible, "Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose." But it does seem like a pertinent economic observation. So thank you to Billie Holiday. And did Billie Holiday write that song? I might even check. Billie Holiday. "Them that's got." All right, I've got to find out the title of the song. "God Bless the Child." Okay, and now we have to write who wrote it. And I'm also going to note that Truth Social, I wonder how it's doing in the stock market today, because there are noises that Trump plans to return to both Twitter and Facebook, which is another real blow to the reputation and the existence of Twitter as a reputable sphere for public discourse. Facebook's reputation has already taken a lot of hammering, but Trump being back on it is a blow to civil discourse and civil society. I would just like to put that out there adamantly, that a incorrigible liar who has already illustrated his ability to incite political violence and general violence, to spur people to act out on anti-Asian racism, spur people to act out on anti-migrant racism. The Pennsylvania Tree of Life synagogue shooting was inspired by someone who had taken all of the proliferating anti-migrant sentiment on the internet so much to heart that he felt he was a warrior for justice in taking an automatic weapon to a synagogue that had a reputation for helping migrants who had recently arrived in the United States. And he took the lives of, I believe, 18 people in that particular synagogue, including some Holocaust survivors. And to imagine someone surviving the Holocaust only to be shredded by bullets from an inappropriately lethal armed forces grade weapon, wielded by a crazed civilian, a racism crazed civilian who is so pumped up on entitlement rhetoric, the entitlement of purported authenticity. Oh, I'm an American, so it's up to me to keep America for Americans. When migrants build America and make America what it is, and there's no special entitlement card that you get if your father and mother were born there, as opposed to moving to America and gifting it with in a symbiotic relationship, an exchange of gifts and energy and commitment and hard work and entrepreneurship. And that is how the spirit and the energy of migration has helped fuel America, coupled with America's reputation for being welcoming to migrants. So that's one of the great bits. That's one of the good foundational building blocks of the better elements of the United States. And as a migrant to the United States myself, I commend it, and I'm grateful for that welcoming spirit, which fluctuates in the degree to which it's embraced by American society overall. But so many Americans are really great at welcoming people to this country, and I applaud those efforts, and I applaud their spirit and their actions. And thank you. So God Bless the Child, I would like to note, was written by Billie Holiday and a gentleman called Arthur Herzog Jr. Was first recorded in 1941 and released in 1942. Song facts. She wrote the lyrics after an argument with her mother, Sadie, over financial matters. That's interesting. Just a few years earlier, Holiday had loaned her mum thousands of dollars to open a restaurant in need of cash. Sadie declined to lend her any money. In her autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, Holiday recalled how, in the course of the argument, she uttered the proverb, "God bless the child that's got his own." The singer's anger over the incident led her to turn that line into a starting point for this song. So this song is her own interpretation of a biblical observation: them who's got shall get, them who's not shall lose. So the Bible says, but it still is news. And the verse that she's referring to was thought to be, "For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him." Matthew 25:29. Well, that's unusual because you don't often hear people sharing messages like that from the Bible. And I'm not entirely clear on the interpretation of it, or if there's a lot of theological support for Billie Holiday's interpretation of it. But at face value, it seems reasonably clear. Matthew 25:29, for everyone who has, for everyone, let me declaim it. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. That seems very contrary to what I understand the message of the Bible to be. But hey, you know what? The Bible's got a bunch of different messages. Some of them surface, some not. Now let's have a look at this anti-racism resources for white people that I put up. Black and white Americans have struggled to either overcome 401 years of brutal oppression, Black folk, or struggle to ignore 401 years of brutal oppression, white folk. And as a result, Americans are entwined in a never-ending ugly dance of racism, police brutality, terrible healthcare, and denial by the majority that threatens to rip the frayed seams of the country. Black people have been talking, writing, singing, and educating white people about racism for 400 years. But every time there's a new uprising by Black people against police brutality, government indifference, war, housing, jobs, white Americans are often stunned and wonder what happened, which then leads to white people asking Black people to explain racism in a text message, via email, on Facebook, or in a group setting. So here is the cover of the June 22nd issue of the, I've got to plug in my laptop. Thanks for bearing with me. Ta-da! Okay. All right. That's George Floyd, and contained within the silhouette of his torso, I can see Emmett Till. I don't know which one is Philando Castile, but I think it might be the top left. I presume there's also Breonna Taylor. I can see Rosa Parks' face. I can see the famous image of the man with scars from repeat whipping on his back. I can see the beating of Rodney King depicted. Maybe the lady on the left is Sandra Bland. A lot of people, anyway, a lot of innocent Black citizens of the United States, just as entitled as any white American to claim that they are authentically American, and that the blood, sweat, tears, and commitment, and industry, and hard work, and commitment to civil rights, and the ideals of America, of their ancestors, are what has made America flourish to the extent that it has. There are close to 200 million white people in America and roughly 40 million Black folk. That's a 5-to-1 ratio, meaning every Black person has to explain racism to 5 white people. Many have exceeded their quota. We are exhausted from it. Myron writes, white Americans are among the most formally educated people in world history, and yet a significant portion want Black people to educate them about racism, as if they haven't lived in this country, read its books, watched its movies, watched the news, or lived in almost all white neighborhoods. White Americans overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, a known racist. And those who didn't vote for Donald and who are silent in the face of Black women and men being murdered by police are complicit. Violence equals violence. Yes, because you're helping prop up a system of scaffolding that violence. White Americans aren't asking their teachers or professors, their executives or managers, their priests, preachers, or therapists to help them understand racism. They are asking Black people. But white people asking Black people about racism is revelatory. White people believe Black people can educate them about racism because they know we experience it from them, their friends, their family. It can look like this in a conversation. White person to Black person. Will you please teach me about racism? Black person. What makes you think I know enough about racism to teach you? White person. Well, there's a lot going on in the news, and I think you can help me understand. Black person. Yes, perhaps, but why do you think I know about racism? White person. Because there's a lot of racism in America. I am certain you have experienced it. Black person. I have, yes. So let me ask you, who do you think was racist to me? White person. White people? White people, yes, I am certain. Black person. Why not ask them then why they are racist? We know why. Because it is uncomfortable to talk to friends, family, business associates, and co-workers, neighbors, and lovers about racism. But somehow in America, we have decided it is easier for white people to ask Black people to share their racism trauma rather than cause discomfort to white family and friends. And this illustration says, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. I believe that was something said by perhaps Eli Wiesel, who was a Holocaust survivor as well. I still recommend white people first ask their friends and family questions of race before asking the one Black person they know. Because maybe some white people think, oh, well, it's your chance to speak on this topic. if it relates to you. And white people might like to share their trauma because perhaps it's their chance to compete in not an oppression Olympics, but it's their chance to mitigate any collective guilt they feel connected to by talking about ways in which they've suffered or been oppressed or experienced trauma in their own lives. So for white people, perhaps it's like a holiday to talk about trauma. It's relatively unusual if we're not overwhelmed and exhausted by experiencing continual, constant aggressions and acts of implied or overt racism during our day-to-day lives. So perhaps we're projecting the white people who continue to ask black people to explain racism to them, like, but I'm handing you the microphone. Tell me about racism, because this is your topic. It's your turn to talk about trauma. And we think it's a privilege to talk about trauma. And we don't understand the exhaustive nature of being asked to dredge up a trauma that is never far from your lived experience, never far from your mind, from the day-to-day energy you have to put into questioning whether or not something bad that happened to you was because somebody was just mean, or were they being specifically mean in a racist way? Was something that happened to you bad luck, or are you being overlooked? Are your talents being ignored because of a conscious or unconscious racist schema that oversees how your boss or colleague or professor or teacher or even friend sees the world and sees, if they see the world organized into a hierarchy of race, how much their brain participates in that type of ordering of worth by skin color, how much those negative associations have permeated their mindset, because there are negative associations and they infuse our lives, a lot of our media and what we consume culturally. Continue to Myron J Clifton's work. He says it starts at home, teaching your toddler about race. This is a graphic by someone called Sharon Mazel. I'm going to say muzzle because it looks like the Jewish word mazel tov. All right, so give your child dolls of all races to play with, read books that feature characters of all races, expose your child to an array of people, have conversations with your verbal child about all the differences they see in the world, check and remedy your own biases, and be sure to always model anti-racist behavior. Parents, please do your part. The task isn't easy, neither is being Black in America. I want to make this point clear again. It is traumatic to ask and expect Black people to explain racism to white people. We survive in a racist society that is designed to vilify our skin, our lips, our hair, our voices, our righteous anger, our speech, our history, our relationships, our very humanity. We survive the only way we can, and by the barest of margins. The daily trauma at work, at school, in public places, watching a movie or television, or reading a book, is visited upon our lives in large and small ways. Being asked to surface what by necessity we cloak is self-centered and racist, and the type of microaggression that contributes to our daily stresses and anger at a country that spends time and money vilifying us until it thinks it needs us to help it learn what we teach our kids at the earliest ages. We are not your white privilege whisperer. Oh, and here's some of the names of the people that were featured in the early illustration. Emmett Till, Eric Garner, John Crawford III. Oh, he was the gentleman who was picked up an air rifle at Walmart and was shot by a police officer. Michael Brown, Azelle Ford, Dante Parker, Michelle Clouseau, Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice was the 12-year-old boy playing in a park. I remember that story. Romaine Brisbane, Jerame Reed, George Mann, Matthew Ajabad, Frank Smart, Natasha McKenna, Tony Robertson, Anthony Hill, Maya Hall, Philip White, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, William Chapman II, Alexia Christian, Brendan Glenn, Victor Manuel LaRosa, Jonathan Sanders, Freddie Carlos Gray Jr., Jonathan Mann, Salvador Ellswood, Sandra Bland, Albert Joseph Davis, Darius Stewart, Billy Ray Davis, Samuel DeBose, Michael Sabi, Brian Keith Day, Christian Taylor, Troy Robinson, Ashams Pharaoh Manley, Felix Kumi, Keith Harrison McLeod, Junior Prosper, Lamontez Jones, Patterson Brown, Dominic Hutchinson, Anthony Ashford, Alonzo Smith, Tariq Crawford, India Kager, Levante Biggs, Michael Lee Marshall, Jamar Clark, Richard Perkins, Nathaniel Harris Pickett, Benny Lee Tigner, and it's a lot of names. It's a lot of names. It's a lot of people that when you personally relate, when you feel you have the same target on your back that these people had on their back when they were executed, victimized by the excesses of a cultural brutality that's often ingrained in America's police forces. Botham Jean, Atiana Jefferson, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, Ahmaud Arbery wasn't killed by police. Oh, he was killed by former police officers who took their guns into a pickup truck and chased down a man jogging in a suburb and attacked him and shot him. So Myron J Clifton writes, like many, I have been asked by well-meaning white friends multiple times over the past month to explain racism to them. If you're Black and as tired as I am from explaining basic racism concepts, you can send the below guide in place of revisiting your own trauma. And if you're white but want help but are uncertain of where to go, then the below guide is a template for you to dive in and learn and grow as a person. There are so many writers, essayists, artists, thinkers, journalists, poets, diplomats, sociologists, historians, and even bloggers who have information just waiting for you to discover them. And like everything in America, there are a variety of voices and opinions because like white people, Black people are not a monolith, despite what Fox News tells you and your parents. Now, this is interesting. I'm also speculating about another potential motivation for all of Myron J. Clifton's white friends to keep asking him to explain racism. What if evidence of racism is more alarming and incongruous to white people whose understanding of history, whose understanding of cultural dynamics in America has been relatively innocent until recently, has been whitewashed, literally whitewashed, to take out the worst behaviors of white people in recent history. So they could say, oh yes, slavery happened, but that was bad. Surely the Civil War was fought and we moved past it. Like, explain the persistence of racism to me. Do you know why this is still happening? I was taught America was good. America was a shining light. It's more difficult for them to process. There's more cognitive dissonance. Well, Black people who've lived in America have had less. Yes, darling. I got to go get my children. Christopher's here. But I have to go get the kids. So thank you to any viewers who are replay viewers. Thank you to the viewers here now. Have a great day. I will link. I have retweeted Myron's post. I do think it's important to think about. I'm going to try and do some writing this evening because I have some ideas as well about maybe men and women being socialized to expect rewards at different times in their lives. Sometimes women are like socialized to go, give me everything I need to help me dispel my anxiety, and then I can get to work on what I need to do. And men are like, I will do the difficult thing and then I will get the reward. And then sometimes if a relationship breaks down, they're angry. They feel like their reward is being stolen from them that they have rightfully earned. So that some of the, and it's not a biological guarantee that any of this behavior happens. I'm talking about sociological conditioning that primes women to have perhaps more of a broad, diffuse sense of responsibility. So we want everybody to be okay, and we're more likely to feel anxious if we think people aren't okay or other people are not doing well. So we want everybody to be okay, and we want ourselves to be okay enough as well so that we can draw breath and get to work on the hard things. Anyway, I just think that's something for me to think about and write about. I'm going to do some of that writing as well about Donald Trump's exploitation of the high levels of racism in American society that we need people to keep efficiently shedding their naivety about. I'm going to help with that process. Shed your naivety. We don't have time, white people, for you to go around going, why is racism still happening? It happens because you can follow the money. It's been extremely profitable for people to operate as if there's a hierarchy of worth according to skin color, and you can treat people accordingly. It's been very profitable to have a way of designating people into different levels of callousness that you can treat them with. So we can stop asking Black people to explain racism to us white people, but I will help with generating resources for that, because it's been time, white people, for us to learn about that by ourselves. And I appreciate we might think sometimes we're paying someone a compliment by passing them the microphone, but don't do it. Don't ask people to discuss their trauma to educate you. I'm happy to do it. I got the time and the inclination. And I believe in processing those feelings of guilt by association sooner rather than later, because deferred guilt and repressed guilt are not healthy, and let people act out in sometimes very damaging and destructive ways. Even if it's mild harm, that mild harm can accumulate and have a compounding effect as well on others. So let's deal with our ish, people. Deal with our ish. Thank you, Christopher. Take care to you too. Take care, everyone, and hopefully see you again soon. Bye.